Mortal Kombat Fatality could easily be the sequel's title from the franchise, don't you think? We're at least owed that much. With a huge tournament up ahead, the most popular character joining in, and all the possible new recognizable backgrounds, we are here with some of the significant changes the Mortal Kombat sequel could bring to the table. Changes which could change everything. Recap. When all the dust has settled, we can say for certain that Mortal Kombat was a success, topping the US box office, but also gaining the title of being the biggest at-home movie success for the HBO Max's streaming platform. And as for a sequel of sorts, director Simon McQuoid has shared some ideas about moving forward, but nothing concrete, other than the fact of an entire trilogy having some outline plans from the writer of the first movie, Greg Russo. And let us tell you this, there will be a whole lot of time before we get another Mortal Kombat movie, but we think that it's bound to happen, seeing how even the first movie itself was gearing up to having at least one, if not more sequels sometime in the future. The waiting is always hard, especially when you're a Mortal Kombat fan, but you'll just have to endure and keep one eye open for anything new coming your way. The reboot proved itself to be a success in another field as well, setting up a sequel which we think will be an even greater movie than the first one we just saw. The reboot coming in 2021 to be more precise. Why, you ask? Well, to start things off, this reboot movie made good on itself as it opened a lot of doors for the franchise to move forward in the right way, of course. And with that in mind, we are here to discuss with you everything we managed to find out about the sequel, which is very interesting, but also all the details that point towards a movie that will break every barrier, changing the entire Mortal Kombat universe moving forward. And without further ado, let's dive right in. A tournament. The Mortal Kombat movie was a big tease, to say the least, with the fans expecting to take more and more from the source material, with the narrative of the story eventually leading all the characters to the big tournament of the Earth Realm that is held every 50 years. Unfortunately, this is not what happened, but this doesn't necessarily mean the movie was bad. We got a very good setup in the first movie, a handful of fights, which ultimately felt better knowing that a sequel is probably already overlooking the horizon. The first movie started to lay out the plan for what's coming, at least that's what many are saying, with the middle movie of the trilogy, the one coming up after this one, to have the full fat tournament we're all expecting. A tournament that will determine the next champion, who will be fighting the world against the outer world's finest. Can you imagine all the broken bones, betrayals, and buckets of blood mopped from the floor? This way, the second Mortal Kombat movie from the reboot will eventually allow for an even more interesting clash of styles moving forward, one that would eventually make the movie even more exciting and inventive than everything we've seen so far.
My lord, I have gathered the remaining champions of Earth.
Johnny Cage. For this one, we're going way back to 1997's Mortal Kombat Annihilation. That made the biggest mistake in the Mortal Kombat universe, the killing of Johnny Cage, one of the most popular characters of the franchise, and a fan favorite of course. Fans of the character have been disappointed for so long, but the suffering probably ended as the ending scenes of Mortal Kombat hinted that Johnny Cage will be appearing in the sequel. A far better fate for the character and the fans alike than what happened to him in the previous movie, when he was finished off in the opening scene of that movie. Whether or not Shang Tsung will return as the main villain for the sequel, fans are safe to predict that the stakes of the second movie will be even higher than anything we've ever seen before. Twice as dangerous, and it all falls to the storyline we're waiting for, and one of the most famous characters in the franchise, Johnny Cage, who we think will be the key of the sequel in the battle against one of the strongest characters in the Earth Realm's future. The character was one of the first ones to appear in the very first video game, and because of that fact alone, is sitting at the top of the pantheon, which is yet another reason his character should be amongst the leading ones in the franchise moving forward, a wish we think will be granted to us in the upcoming sequel. The importance of the character itself seems to be why he was not part of the first movie, saving him to be one of the lead characters moving forward. As for all of us here, the only thing we need to do is pray that the character will receive the respect he deserves in the upcoming Mortal Kombat 2, a movie from the franchise as hinted in the first movie, which will eventually bring a lot of shifts and changes in the franchise. A new heavy. One of the unique elements of the Mortal Kombat universe are the extremes the video game, but also the reboot presented us with, and introducing Goro just for the sake of it is a bold move to say the least. Because, after all, he's more than just a brick house of an enemy to go through. He's the heart and soul of the first Mortal Kombat game and the tournament in it, even in the storyline. He's that gigantic threat, the big baddie status almost every movie nowadays has. Something along the lines of what Thanos was in the MCU. So he's a big deal. However, the first movie did him dirty and did not give him enough credit, which is both a bad thing and a good thing. A bad thing is that we'll never see him again, but the good side out of all this is that we'll be getting a new heavy in the sequel. That is for sure. The only thing we're missing right now is who that heavy hitter will be. One of the prime replacements could be Kintaro or perhaps Motaro. Centaurs are a lot of work, so maybe the safer bet would be to bring in someone like Moloch or even Blaze. We'll never know until the movie comes to the big screen, but one thing is for sure, whatever the case may be, we'll be getting some kind of a change that will eventually shift things in one or another direction for us in our homes, but also for the characters in the Earth realm.
Back inside.
Backgrounds. The backgrounds are all there is to the Mortal Kombat video games. Every new installment had new backgrounds and places where the characters of the universe fight. And while the reboot showcased a few, we need more cool and unique places for the clashes of the characters. And even though it was a little bit of a disappointing thing to see the movie feature only a sand pit, the insides of a crappy house, and a frozen locker room, maybe the lesson will be learned for the sequel, with the franchise introducing more and more interesting recognizable backgrounds to the table. We're at least owed to see someone get impaled onto the spikes, right? One of the prime examples that come to mind, backgrounds that can be featured in the sequel, can be the living forest or maybe even the Deadpool. The possibilities are somewhat endless. With so much to choose from, we think that we'll finally get what we deserve from the sequel, particularly because of the fact that a big tournament is coming up next.
But there are other enemies to fight. We cannot let our guard down.
On a related note, tell us down in the comments below what are your thoughts on the reboot, and if you could implement something from the video games we have on our hands, what would that be? Maybe a new fun catchphrase even. Feel free to share your take for the sequel. Change is always a good thing after all, but also don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Sorry, my days fighting for $200 are done.
You're finally quitting, huh?
Yeah,